In this video, I'm going to show some clips of when I've been in these engine and gearbox warehouse units, of them putting together or rebuilding the internal components of the actual engine or a gearbox. I couldn't find some cool clips of like them working on like Range Rovers, Beamers, vans, but this is what I could find. So I'm going to show the insides of the warehouse and the different components of the engine that they work on, and also how they keep everything really neat and tidy so they can easily work on the cars as well. But if I can find the clips of a few warehouse that I've been in where they're working on really cool cars, I'll probably make another video. So this gearbox unit is specializes in automatic gearboxes, mainly DSG, so dual clutch transmission. So what you're seeing here is the what all automatic gearboxes have, which is a torque converter. So this torque converter is what transfers the power from an engine to turn the wheels. So basically, this sits between the engine and a gearbox, and how it transfers the power from the engine turning into making the gearbox turn is that there's fluid inside that like circular like metal cylinder, that component basically. And what happens is that when one side of the when the engine side of that component turns, it turns the fluid that's inside that whole metal casing, which in turns the other side, which is connected to the gearbox, which makes the whole gearbox turn. So basically, it's all inside this that little metal case, which is sealed really good, so it doesn't leak. 'Cause if it leaks, then it's if the engine turns, then it's not turning no fluid to turn the other side, which is connected to the gearbox. So that's like what transfers the like engine turning to the gearbox turning. Moving on now. So in this unit, as you can see, it's really neat what they've done. They've put up these really big shelves and industrial shelves, and what they've done is they've probably got all these spare parts, all these spare gearbox casings, taken out all the gears, whatever spare gears that they got, whatever spare insides, the inner workings of the gearbox, everything's spare. They've neatly laid out. So because they've probably done so many jobs and ordered in so many replacement parts, so what they've done is that whenever a car comes in, and because all of these parts that they got laid out are working, so when their car comes in and it's a simple, not a simple job, but let's say they know what's wrong with it, that a part needs to be replaced, they already got the parts there for them to literally just take the previous ones out. Whatever gearbox is on the car that's coming with a problem, they take that gearbox out, whatever the problem is, whatever faulty component within the gearbox, or if something the gearbox is cracked, they'll replace it with what they already got that's on the shelves there, which is probably from a previous job, but has the, let's say the previous job had a gearbox, the component inside wasn't working, so, or a large part of the gearbox was broken, snapped, like the metal inside, like the rods, the bearings, something like mechanically broken. So what they do is they take out the gearbox, probably ordering a new one for the individual, who where they just add it to the car, and then what they do, they probably just take take the broken, whatever broken rods out or bearings, whatever gears, and they chuck the broken stuff away, and then they um, take the inner workings, which are good, probably inspect it to make sure that they're working, and then they place it on the shelf. So obviously, when someone's car comes in now, and they know that, hold on, okay, that gear is broken, or that rod is broken, or the casing of the gearbox is broken. We got a spare. We got one of them gearboxes there. We just need to replace the current car's gears or spindles or rods, and just place it into this new gearbox casing, and chuck this whole new this used gearbox onto the car, and that's it. They got they don't have to order the whole gearbox again. They can just replace that certain part which they already have, and then they just reuse the parts from the actual car's gearbox, or whatever gearbox they got, and they just reuse the working good parts. So obviously, that's what's really neat and tidy about the way this unit has everything lined up. As you can see here, what they got a few spare parts, not a few, but they got spares of the insides of, let's say, gears, bearings, clutch packs. So they all have their different sort of they all have their different jobs within the gearbox. So obviously, um, everything spins inside the gearbox. So whenever anything, like let's say the clutch packs now, which are the hoop looking rings, what they do, they all sit together, and each gears have their own clutch packs. So when force is applied to that clutch pack, it, let's say pressure is applied to that clutch pack now, it then is pushed against a certain component within that's next to it, which makes that component turn. So everything is sort of really packed so heavily into the whole casing, where every little thing turns, which has an output, it has an outcome. So any small little mechanical failure, and it sort of it has a effect on the whole power output. So the way that these gearboxes, like whoever came up with this, is a automatic gearbox unit, like um like they fix automatic gearboxes. So whoever made like this whole gearbox in the first place, from when they were manual. So manual gearboxes are much easier to deal with and to fix, but you can take it to a normal garage and they can sort of deal with a manual gearbox. But for these automatic ones, they're a lot more complicated, because there's a lot more inner components, like a lot more little bits and pieces which turn within the whole casing. So it's more complicated, especially this one, because it's DSG. So it's a dual clutch transmission. So basically, it changes the gears much quicker. So let's say you just put your foot down on the accelerator, it's able to change the gears so quick, like within like a couple milliseconds. It's able to go to the second gear, to the third gear, because it these automatic DSG gearboxes, they have two transmissions. So the first transmission is whatever gears it's on, and then it has a brain, which is the mechatronics. So I'm going to show you in the next clip of the brain and what that does. So here you can see this dude is opening up the inside. So he's already opened everything up, taken components out, and now he's taken apart them components. So each component has even more like little bearings, rings, hoops, like gears, all sitting inside like each different like part or gear. So um, there next to him as well, you can see like he's got the whole that brain, that mechatronic. So what that does is basically it's it knows what to do when you put your foot on the accelerator. So if someone, remember, these mechatronics are only in automatic gearboxes, dual clutch transmission gearboxes, DSG basically. So when someone puts their foot on the accelerator, that brain knows, hold on, this person's put this much pressure on the accelerator pedal. This is the RPM that he's going up. Now, because there's two transmissions in these DSG gearboxes, so that mechatronic brain has then put let's say a lever on the, let's say you put your foot down on first gear, is put a lever on the second gear. So as soon as it knows, once you've hit a certain RPM, because of it knows how much pressure you're putting on the pedal, it's got that second gear ready. Boom. Once it's hit that second gear ready, it's still it's still monitoring the amount of pressure that's on the that's placed on the accelerator pedal. So when you when it's changed to second gear now, within milliseconds, it's already got the third gear ready because it knows, hold on a second, if this individual's putting this much pressure on the accelerator pedal, I'm gonna get the other transmission. So the where the first gear was is gonna get that transmission ready for third gear. So it's got a lever there ready to. So when the RPMs on the second gear now has hit a certain amount, and it knows, okay, now I need to change gear. Boom, it changes gear straight away. Obviously, now when you put your foot on the brake, it's disengaged the whole um, the whole transmission. Is separated the power output coming out from the engine to the gearbox once the brake pedals hit. So now if if the foot is placed on the accelerator pedal, it already knows what gear to go to, because what's happened is that um, because the because the gears has been engaged now, what is done is gone to a certain speed, but the brain knows that at that certain speed it needs to be in this certain gear. So it's already, what, as soon as the foot's placed, it already knows, it's already got that lever in place because the speed is at, it knows what speed the car is at. So it's got the lever in place for the gear that needs to be placed in that speed as soon as you put your foot on the accelerator, and the whole process is repeated. So as you can see, this is this mechanic's workstation, and what he's done, he's working on this gearbox, and he's taken it all apart and placed everything neatly, so he knows where everything is, all the little small components, little parts, every single screw, every single little rod he's placed where he knows when he puts it back together, he knows where everything is, and it can be, everything can just be put back together easily for him. Okay, so here these are all clutch packs. So this is like what all automatic gearboxes have. A really simple piece of machinery within the automatic gearbox. It's nothing complicated. Just just loads of them inside a gearbox. As you can see, these clutch packs are bigger than the previous ones. So these they're all for like different gears. So it could be for like fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear, and they're all different sizes depending on what gear it sits in. So they all got teeth, and the teeth sit inside the gear, so they all turn together, and that's when all the pressure is applied to the clutch pack, and they all sit like that in a whole pack. As you can see, this is an engine rebuilding warehouse garage, and so they do, the cars come in with an engine problem, so they're taking the engine out. They're not touching the gearbox, because obviously the gearbox warehouse, they specialize in the gearbox, and this is the engine rebuilding unit, so they deal with the internal components of an engine. Now I had a few clips of like some really cool cars that were being worked on. I can't really find them, but yeah, like I said, the like, let's say a gearbox is quite, like, whoever invented a gearbox, they must have they must have thought about it so much, put together so many small things, a lot of errors must have happened to then sort of work to overcome the errors that happened in the first place with the first sort of types of gearboxes, for it to become this complicated. And remember the gearbox that I'm showing is that's from a car, like, let's say 20, from like 20 years ago. So like if the technology with a car is that much then, so what they've done, they just keep building on top of that. So whoever invented the gearbox in the first place, it's just been, people have just been building the technology on top of that base, on top of the base of how like all the gears within that one gearbox, like let's say 4, 5 gears, and then they've built on top of that 6 gears, 7 gears, DSG, and they've made ways where the gears switch faster, and all these different things they've based on top of the foundation of that first gearbox, which was probably invented God knows when, like a whole decade ago. But as you can see, there's so many little different components, and never know why such a what can happen, why a mechanical part can fail inside one of these cases. Like, let's say they got a lot of teeth, like you can see the clutch packs, they're quite thin rings, but obviously they're made to as of high quality, so even they can fail now if one of the if anything inside the gearbox like jams, or like let's say a tooth like that's like one of the tooth within the gears breaks, then it can lead to more damage because that tooth can then sort of sh- um, fall into another piece that spins within the gearbox. And remember, everything inside a gearbox has teeth and it all spins together. So if something small metal part breaks, it can cause a lot of damage. It can cause a whole part of the engine to jam. It can cause the whole like part of the gearbox to jam, because if a metal piece comes loose and gets somewhere else within that gearbox, then it jams the whole thing, and that's it. That's where the mechanic comes in, who specializes in these things, and takes it apart, finds out, hold on a second, that don't look right, that looks broken. Oh wait, look what I found a metal piece, seems to be a shard of metal that's just sitting around in the gearbox. Then obviously they find out if let's say this is a scenario I'm talking about. So let's say they find out, okay, let's see what other damage is done within the gearbox. It hasn't done no damage. It's only come off that one spindle, one gear, or that one rod, or that clutch pack. Then they just got to replace that clutch pack, or whatever piece that metal shard or has come like broken off from, and that's it. They put it all back together, test the car out, everything seems good. That's it. That's their job done. So it is quite a um, it is it's a niche it's yeah, it is a niche job. you, there's got to be a lot of hands-on experience, knowledge. As you can see, where the mechanic on his workstation had all them components, and he hasn't got a manual. He's not using a manual to take everything apart. He's not using a manual to put everything back together. It's all hands-on knowledge of how everything spins together, what sits where. It's literally um like these mechanics that deal with these sort of things. And this is only like this is remember this is like a quite old gearbox, like DSG. I mean, you get the new ones, they're all quite similar. They just have been improved in certain ways and whatnot. But to know where everything sits, how everything gets put together is quite it's quite difficult.